In this video, we're going to be taking a look on pages Access 80 and 81, which is entitled to Use the Report Wizard. After watching this video, you should be able to create a report with the Report Wizard and to change page orientation. A report is the primary object you use to print database content because it provides the most formatting, layout, and summary options. A report may include various fonts and colors, clip art and lines, and multiple headers and footers. A report can also calculate subtotals, averages, counts, and other statistics for groups of records. You can create reports in Access by using the Report Wizard, a tool that asks questions to guide you through the initial development of the report. Your responses to the Report Wizard determines the record source, style, and layout of the report. The record source is the table or query that defines the fields and records displayed on the report. The Report Wizard also helps you to sort, group, and analyze the records. On step 1 on page Access 80, it first of all wants us to start Access and to open up the Quest Travel D Access database. You'll need to go to Core Sites to download the Quest Travel D Access database. Save that to your computer, either into your My Documents or into your Downloads folder, and then you need to open it up. Then, if you receive the security warning, you do need to go ahead and enable the content by clicking the Enable Content button. And then, once you enable the content, we need to go ahead and click on the Create tab. Once you click on the Create tab on the ribbon, we next want to click the Report Wizard button in the Reports group. So here's our Reports group, and we want to click on the Report Wizard. Now the Report Wizard will start, which prompts you to select the fields you want on the report. You can select fields from one or more tables or queries. In step 2, it tells us that it wants us to click the Tables and Queries list arrow. And here's the Tables and Queries list arrow. When we click on this, it gives us all the tables, queries, and lists, which right now all we have is tables. And it tells us that we want to click on the Tables States. Then of course it has the available fields here from the States tables. And it tells us that it wants us to double click the state name field. So we double click the state name field. Then it wants us to click back on the Tables and Queries list arrow. And then it wants us to click on the Table Tours. Once we have that, it has all the field available to us in the Tours table. And then it tells us it wants us to click the Select All Fields button, which is the double arrow here. And that's going to move all of the fields from the available fields into the selected fields. Then next, it tells us it wants us to click the State Abbrev in the Selected Fields list. And then click on the Remove Field button, which is the single arrow pointing to the left. Now by selecting the state name field from the States table, and all fields from the Tours table except the State Abbrev field, you have all the fields you need for the report. Now, if you run into trouble, if you make a mistake and select a field that you do not want on there, you just click the unwanted field in the Selected Fields list and then click the Remove Field button, as we did to remove the state abbreviation field. In step 3, it tells us to click the Next button, which will take us to the next part of the Report Wizard. And then it asks us, how do we want to view our data? Do we want to view it by states, or do we want to view it by tours? Then it tells us that we want to make sure that the by states is selected if it's not already. Now choosing by states groups together the records for each state. Now in addition to record grouping options, the Report Wizard later asks if you want to sort the records within each group. Now you can use the Report Wizard to specify up to 4 fields to sort in either ascending or descending order. In step 4, it tells us next that we want to click the next button, which takes us to the next step in the report wizard. And then it tells us that we want to go ahead and at this time we do not want to add any grouping levels. So we're going to click next again, and then this will take us to the sort order on there. And of course it tells us that we want to click the first sort order list arrow, which is right here. Of course, you notice the other ones are grayed out because you have to add the first one before you add any others. When we click on the first one on here, it tells us that we want to click the tour start date. Once we have that selected, we are then going to click on Next. Now the last questions in the report wizard deal with the report appearance and the report title. In step 5, it tells us that we want to click the stepped option button in the layout group here. So we have step, blocked, and outline. And of course you can see that there's a little simple preview that's over here, but we want to choose the stepped so we can see how that's going to be generally kind of laid out here. Then it tells us that we can click the landscape option button in the orientation group. And then finally we want to click on the next button. Once we have that, it tells us that we want to type tours by state for the report title. So we can select states and just type over this and type in tours by state. And that's going to be our report title. And then we want to click on the Finish button. The Tours by State report is now opening in the print preview, which displays the report as it appears when printed. Now the records are grouped by state, which we determined that just a little bit ago in the report wizard. And of course when this opens up, sometimes it takes just a few moments for it to open up. And here we go, it's opening up on here. And there it is in print preview. Now the records are grouped by state. And of course, as we notice on here, that the first state being California. Then it's going to be sorted in ascending order by the tour start date field within each state. Reports are read-only objects, meaning you can use them to read and display data, but not to change or write to the data. As you can change data using tables, queries, or forms, reports constantly display those up-to-date edits just like all of the other Access objects, but however you cannot make any changes. So if you would try to click in on a report, it's not going to allow you to make any of those changes on there. In step 6, it tells us to scroll down to see the second grouping section. So if we just scroll down a little bit on here, we see that the second grouping section is going to be for Colorado on there. And then of course we have our navigation buttons down here, and we want to click the next page button, and it takes us to the next page that's on here. And this is the second page of the report, and we can see that there's still some more states' names and everything else and how they're broken down and divided up on there into their own groups. Now, even in landscape orientation, which is 11 inches wide by 8.5 inches tall, which is as opposed to portrait orientation, which is 8.5 inches wide by 11 inches tall, the fields on the Tours by State report may not fit all on one sheet of paper. The labels in the column headings and the data in the columns need to be resized to improve the layout. Now, depending on your monitor, you might need to scroll to the right to display all the fields on this page. So you may need to make those adjustments depending on the resolution on your monitor and how it's set up. Now, if you take a look on page Access 81, talks to us a little bit about changing page orientation. Now, to change page orientation from portrait, which is 8.5 by 11 inches tall, to landscape, which is 11 inches wide by 8.5 inches tall, and vice versa, you click on the Portrait or Landscape button on the Print Preview tab. And of course, here we have our Print Preview tab, and you can easily just click on the Portrait and Landscape buttons, and you notice that it will change that on there. Now, of course, to switch the Print Preview, you can right-click the report in the navigation pane and then choose Print Preview on the shortcut menu. So if we would go over here to the reports, we can always right click on the Tours by State report which we created, and we can always go through here and click on Print Preview down here at the bottom to get to this Print Preview menu. And then once we click on that, that will take us to our Print Preview. And that concludes the information that is in on pages Access 80 and 81. You are ready to move on to the next video, in which we're going to be taking a look at using the report layout view.